Hey, what's up, guys?
What up?
Welcome back. So I'm gonna start off this video by saying that these videos are long for a purpose. Like, we wanna help you guys because we've learned things that have contributed so much to our well-being and our growth as people.
Also, this helps us because we're doing a lot of introspective thinking, and it's helping us as we continue in life, because these are things that we're still dealing with and still learning about.
Yes, that is our storyboard for this very episode. The storyboarding process is really important if you want to be a YouTuber, or if you just want to make film and stuff in general. But that's not what we're talking about today.
Failure to plan is planning to fail.
Facts.
Thank you.
Facts.
Okay, guys. So today we wanted to talk about the good old ego.
So what brings about this talk is that a friend of mine and we were talking about ego the other day, and I've been kind of thinking about that recently, so I wanted to bring that to the channel and kind of like see what the communal mind has to say about it, you know?
So what is ego?
My definition of ego is just self-importance and like what you think of yourself or how you value yourself.
When I think of ego, I think of, you know, that Freudian chart, triangle,
Like the id, super
and
ego.
something is the id, and something else is the
Yeah.
ego, and something else is something else. That's what I think about when I think of ego. I was reading today on an article about consciousness. The author, who is, I should definitely give credit to whom credit is due, to Naz.
Shout out to Naz.
Whoever you are, great job. But basically, it's saying that the ego is heavily conditioned by society, past experiences, culture, and also fear. And although the main job of the ego is protection, more often than not, your ego voice becomes rooted in fear. And also goes on to say that the ego likes to talk about, you know, your wants, your securities, your plans, your anxieties, and your stresses, and it will often think of the worst possible scenario and be quick to judge and discriminate. And the ego voice always likes to be right and hates being questioned and loves to feel victimized.
You know who that sounds like? Fred!
I feel like everyone definitely has an ego.
Yeah.
And at some point in your life, your ego might speak a lot louder than, you know, the voice of your soul or the voice of your spirit. And I think it's our responsibility to minimize the loudness of the ego. And that might be by walking in compassion, or it might mean
Exercising your mind so you can be more open-minded.
Yeah, or being patient.
Or like action instead of reaction based.
Right, exactly.
See, we know stuff.
Ways to kill the ego. Not even kill it, because you need it for certain things, but ways to minimize its control over
Right, yeah.
your thinking, your life, your actions.
So when I was younger, I was 12 to 13 years old, and I didn't know what egocentrism was, but I found a lot of examples of it around me. So I came up with this word, and I think I was trying to like rap at the time too, so I made up the word Eurocentric model.
Eurocentric?
Yeah.
That's actually not bad.
Like heliocentric model?
Were you a good rapper?
Not at all. I was cheap.
Like,
You know, like heliocentric model, geocentric model?
I do not.
The geocentric model was, I want to say Copernicus or someone else, but the geocentric model basically said that the universe revolved around the Earth.
Oh, those.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And the heliocentric model was
the
like
around the sun.
something like that. But basically, I was like going off of that.
Okay.
So Eurocentric model. So I thought
the
that
world revolves around you.
Yeah.
You're
Exactly.
smart.
Until I found out what egocentrism was, I was like, I was like onto this at an early age. You know what I mean? But I just didn't have the knowledge.
You didn't have the words, like the English.
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. So I just took what I had and like made my own in a sense. I would definitely say that the ego can be used for good. You know what I mean? It's
It has
needed.
potential for good.
Yeah, like everyone has an ego. It's just that the ego can get to a point where it's so reaction based and like at your fingertips that you just like lose sight of
you spiral out of control.
Yeah, so Fred. So let's say that your ego is a conscious being, right? Fred wants to see you spiral out of control and eventually like burn out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sucks. Yeah.
Exactly. Fred sucks. Oh, one thing you said about it imagines the worst possible scenario, right? Which isn't bad. In case of being open-minded people think of every spectrum, like the best thing that could happen, the best thing that could happen, the in-between, and like stuff like that, right? But that's being open-minded to all possibilities. Ego is worst possible scenario is going to happen.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, there's like no other possibility of good, pretty much.
You know, something that I've heard people say, I think what I'm trying to say is sometimes you'll come across people who are negative Nellies. You ever come across people who are just negative, like, oh, poor me, and
like victimized.
I mean, yes, and obviously there are situations where you will be a victim. I'm not saying that there won't. Like, life just happens like that. We're not always victors and conquerors, and sometimes we don't make those wins. Sometimes we take L's. But the whole point of is getting up and like walking towards the best possible scenario, or even the mediocre scenario. You know? But then there's some people who, you just said this, continue to strive for the glasses half empty. Like, no matter what the situation is.
It's like a constant.
Yeah.
Oh, so in a sense it's like idling.
Yeah. So then those people, technically, they would be egocentric.
Right.
Because they have to continue to victimize themselves in all situations. You see what I'm trying to say?
Right, yeah, and through that way, they're like a egocentric model.
Exactly.
In a sense. That makes sense, yeah.
And I also found that people like that too do it so that they can get attention.
That's very true. That's very true.
Egocentric.
Right, yeah. I see that a lot on social media. Attention isn't a bad thing. The way in which you try to gain attention is what may be judged. Basically, what's your reasoning for posting what you're posting?
So is your ego behind the reason why you're posting something? Are you doing it because you have an anxiety about not being noticed? Because if you are, that might be pointing back to your ego. And you know, there's a, I feel as if there's a good measure, I think we've said this, there's a good measure of ego and there's a negative measure of ego.
Right, yeah. That's also something that could be stemming off of something that happened in the past.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think you said it before, where ego is based off of insecurities, right?
Yes.
So insecurities more or less come from a situation in which you felt inferior.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
So ego is usually rooted in fear rather than survival. Like, it should be in survival, but I think maybe just because we are so inclined to taking fear and using that as a motivation for a lot of factors in our life, those insecurities get played on by fear, you know, and then that thereby plays on our perception of the world and the way the world sees us, which then influences our actions.
Right.
Let's give a public example.
Okay.
Okay, so my human specimen that I like to study is our 45th president. I feel that he's a great example of what it means to have an ego that hurts rather than helps. I think that he came from a background where he was constantly on TV, and so he built up a perception of the world and the way the world sees him, and
through that he built his own persona.
Exactly. Which is what a lot of us do when we go on social media, or even like when we wake up and go to school or go to work. There's a persona that we've built according to the way the world, or the way we perceive the world sees us. Therefore, that becomes the way we perceive ourselves. I
actually, there's a part of my book that says
because you keep mentioning a book that you're reading, and here,
why are all the black kids sitting at this scene?
Just put the book right there.
Yes. But it was saying the features that are salient for you are what everyone else, like, quote unquote, defines you as. So, like, for me, for example, my salient traits were my height, my skin color, my head. I have a big head, so
You have a nice
yeah, nice head of hair too.
So then my salient traits would be my skin color, the fact that I'm a woman, my height. Okay, I'm understanding.
Those are insecurities. With social media, you're able to hide that in a sense, because you can basically sculpt the image you want other people to see. You can choose to expose your faults or your humanness, you know, the reality of things, or you can choose to put up the best
possible
yeah,
image of yourself, okay,
which may not even be a healthy
image.
Best image of yourself. It could be catered towards what other people think of you, and that's where you begin to rely on what other people want or what other people think of you to sculpt yourself.
And that literally all revolves around